complexity of health and medicine and all these things, there's a few things that I wanted to address with regards to diet, because I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, and a lot of people are then paralysed in terms of how should they go about their diet. So that's what I'm going to go through today, go through key macronutrients, and then go through this idea of ultra processed food. And I think that's where I'm going to start, because a lot of people actually don't understand the basis of what processing of food is, and at what degree should you then leave certain foods to go for another diet. So ultra processed foods come from the University of Sao Paulo, where they created the NOVA classification, and that basically divided foods into 4 groups, with one being minimally processed. An example of this is an orange from a tree, and then ultra processed is where you can basically not recognize anything on the back of a label, and it's all manufactured industrially. And this is where a lot of the issues arise, because in the UK, for example, and it's even worse in America, 60% of diets are composed of ultra processed foods. And the issue with ultra processed foods are, like I said, they are formed of chemicals, a lot of entities that the body cannot recognize, which, when you think about the evolution of the human species, over the last 20-30 years, where ultra processed foods have come to the forefront of the market, the genes that we have not evolved to allow this type of food to be recognized by the body, which is why we find that a lot of health inequalities are present. So the idea or the concept that you should try and follow is 80% of whole foods, and that is something where it is not ultra processed. That is something where you can pick it up and actually understand the majority, if not all, the ingredients in the back of that packaging. And 20% I concede to ultra processed food, because given the Western diet, convenience, and a lot of the things that just turn up without you actually knowing it, then you've just got to include it, because otherwise you would be fighting a losing battle, unless you live remotely on some organic farm in some random remote land. But that is the thing. So with processing food as well, I think a lot of people complicate what processing is. So as a human, we have a very small digestive tract, if I can speak. And the idea of processing food can be cutting food up, it can be cooking it, that is all processing, but it is not harmful. It only allows your body to actually eat certain nutrients, because without so, you could get food poisoning and you could get a lack of absorption because it's not digested in the correct time. But it's just when it becomes ultra processed where we actually don't recognise the food, and the body doesn't know what to do with it in a lot of circumstances. There's a lot of studies out there at the moment where you have someone on a whole food diet versus an ultra processed one, and on average the ultra processed food group will eat a lot more calories and energy per day, and that's because the body just simply cannot recognise these things until it's too late and you've ate some other food group in that meantime. Okay, so that's ultra processing out the way. The next thing I'm going to go on to are key macronutrients. So I'm going to start with the most popular one, which is protein. Protein has come to the point now where anyone, regardless of if you're a gym goer or not, will cite the amount of protein within a meal. The higher, the healthier the meal comes across as, and that is the mantra that's given out, which isn't necessarily true, because something can just have extra nitrogen in it, it bumps up the protein balance in inverted commas, and then it could have all the other things, ultra processing, etc. alongside it, and then people would still class it as healthy when it is clearly not. But protein is a key macronutrient in the sense that it's composed of 20 amino acids. That's what proteins are made up of. Not all at one point, but the body needs these 20 amino acids. 9 of them of which we cannot make ourselves, and we must obtain from a diet. Now, if you are an omnivore, so you eat everything, it is easier to obtain these amino acids from animal sources of protein, such as lean meat. So you've got lean bins, lean mince, you've got chicken, etc., where they will be classed as complete proteins because they contain the essential amino acids. If you are vegan, then you have to pair food groups up to make sure that you are getting an adequate coverage of protein. But the idea that vegans cannot get enough protein is a complete myth. A lot of people who are high sports stars or bodybuilders, all these people can't get enough protein when they are vegan. But then the next question is, how much should you go for in your diet? So the recommended daily allowance is 0.8 grams per kilogram. This was studied, I think, in the 70s, and the idea of that study was, what amount of protein do we need to consume to stay alive and function? That doesn't mean it's optimizing muscle growth or optimizing function at all. It's just merely to stay alive without you breaking down your muscle and other structures for energy and protein. So where I would recommend people go towards, and this is for anyone who wants to optimize their functionality, so if you go into the gym, and also as you're getting older, because you will experience something called sarcopenia, which is a reduction in muscle mass. So one of the key things to improve muscle mass is by eating protein, and the other one is to resistance train. So I would aim for 1.6 grams per kilo per day, up to 2 grams per kilo per day. The way you obtain that, I wouldn't do so from a protein shake or protein bar because of the reasons I've just said before about ultra processed foods. These are a high proportion of these food groups is the protein supplement industry. Now, for me, I obtain it from whole food diets, and I would advise people to do so because it's easily obtained that way. Now, the only time I would advise people to have supplements is merely through convenience. So if you are an athlete, for example, you cannot train on full stomachs. That is where supplements come in. But then arguably a lot of these athletes only have a short span within their career. So after that point, then hopefully they go to whole food sources. But that is protein, 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo per day. Try and get it from whole foods, and depending on what type of diet you follow, omnivore, vegan, you will be able to obtain it from whole food sources. Now the next one, which I think is arguably going to be the best macronutrient over the next 2 to 4 years, has to be fibre. Fibre is something that we associate with vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, etc. We should aim for 30 grams per day because basically the microbiome is a large part of our body. It's technically not inside it because it's within the gut, and that's classed as outside the body, but the gut has a lot of functions that feed back within normal physiology, and 80 to 90% of your immune system is gut associated lymphoid tissue. So again, if you are providing fibre to that microbiome, it's enabling it to flourish and do other things which will optimize your health in the long run. And the thing is that we actually don't know too much about the microbiome. It's got such a big input within our lives and physiologically that it's scary that we've only just started to understand what it actually is. But a lot of people will go down the route of supplementing fibre. Again, I think anything to do with supplements should be as a last resort. You should always try to optimize what you can do within your own routine, because supplements are exactly what the word means. You supplement what you already have. And if you've not made an attempt to actually improve what you already have without the need of excess things, then I just think you are putting yourself in bad health or worse health than what you could have been. So ways to do this are, you've got, chia seeds are in a lot of puddings at the moment. They contain a lot of fibre. Oats for breakfast. You've obviously got a lot of fruits, vegetables, and a rule of thumb is try to eat 30 different plants per week, because then that gives you a variety of different fibres. You've got soluble and you've got starchy, etc. There's a lot of things to it, but I think it is something that will grow in popularity. It is something definitely that we prioritise within our own meals. We base our meal around the fibre first, followed closely by protein. But again, as long as you are including it, you will get the benefits from it. Now, the last subject of fats, a food group that was demonised probably in the 80s and 90s, associating it with heart disease, which is true in some respects. But with fats now, a lot of people go for the low-fat alternative, which can lead to a lot of health inequalities, because in that case, they've removed the fat for excess sugar, normally refined, and it's only ultra-processed at that point. So then you're getting a double whammy. You're getting excess refined sugars with ultra-processing. Again, not good for your health. But the thing that I wanted to say about fats are that you should try and obtain as much of your fat content, not from saturated fats, but more from polyunsaturated fats or monounsaturated fats. Now, what these look like in your diet. Monounsaturated will come in the form of like walnuts, seeds, etc. Then you've got avocados, and you've got seed oils such as olive oil, etc. Well, actually olive oil is a bit different, but olive oil. And one particular fat that we definitely need within our diet is omega-3. The body cannot make omega-3, and omega-3 is essential for cell membranes and a lot of other functions in terms of reducing inflammatory responses, whilst also balancing up a few metabolic functions. But the whole point is you need to obtain it from your diet, the same way you have to obtain some of the amino acids from your diet. And I aim for about 1.5 grams daily, but where would you get omega-3 from? So oily fish is the main source. If you are vegan, you can get it from algae. And if you are vegan, you can get it from flax seeds, chia seeds, etc. The only difference or issue with plant-based approach, apart from algae, is the fact that the omega-3 precursor, which is alpha-linoleic acid that comes from the plant-based sources, has a poor conversion rate into EPA and DHA, which are the most functional forms of omega-3 that we would like. So if you are vegan, go for algae, I was going to say algae product then. And if you are able to eat enough fish within your diet and you are an omnivore, by all means do it that way. I personally supplement because I find that even though I was eating all them types of foods in the right quantities, the quality of the food that we must have is pretty poor. And there is a lot of evidence showing that a lot of fish is farmed and it's hard to obtain raw quality ingredients. So I supplement with that one, and I'm due to retest I think in 2 months. So again, I will see whether the improvements has actually happened, and if it has, then by all means I'll carry on doing it in my lifestyle. But they're the 3 main macronutrients. I didn't go into carbohydrates because there's a lot of complexities to that. But the biggest key or take-home message from this is to remove the amount of ultra-processed foods within your diet. Try and go for an 80-20 split, because you will have to concede, especially within the West, even in Eastern cultures now, when you go traveling, that ultra-processing will be prevalent within foods, just purely because of the ease and financial implications on that. And then if you are looking to optimize your own diet, make sure you are getting all the amino acids, making sure you are optimizing protein intake to about 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo per day. Make sure you are getting enough omega-3, otherwise you will be you will be inducing an inflammatory state. Doesn't mean you are actively in inflammation, that is a big misconception, but it allows greater function and absorption of other nutrients because it's a part of cell membranes. And then fibre, if you can give your gut what it needs to feed on and thrive, then you will have better immune function. You will also have many different functions such as cholesterol, and the gut and the microbiome is such an undiscovered part of science that I think people underappreciate the fact that you need to nourish it and you will get a lot of health benefits. Now, I am going to check to see if there are any questions. I don't think there will be, but I'm going to look anyway. There's no questions. Well, hopefully it builds up, you never know. If you do watch this in retrospect, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
That was actually